Hello, my name is Dennis Van Engelstorp and I'm the director of the Bee Informed Partnership, and I'm pleased today to be releasing the first vlog on which accompanies our batch of releases from last year's Honeybee Management Survey. The Honeybee Management Survey came about after 5 years of effort between the Apiary Inspectors of America and the Honeybee Research Laboratory in Beltsville, Maryland, where we conducted a survey trying to monitor the level of loss across the country. This map is a map of average loss suffered by beekeepers last winter across the country. And you can see that losses were not equal in different regions. However, even though the average loss, and this data refers to 2009-2010, even though the average loss was 30%, you can see that the number of beekeepers suffering levels of loss was different. So we had about 25% of beekeepers who lost more than 53% of their operation, and we had another 25% of beekeepers who lost less than 14% of their operation. And a 14% loss is considered acceptable. So this begs the question, what is different? What are those beekeepers doing different, or what is different about the colonies and those operations that lost fewer than 14% and those that lost more than 53%? And to help address this, or help answer this question, we did a management survey which we conducted last year. We're going to be releasing management survey answers over the next several months in batches. And so today's batch we're going to talk a little bit about who responded to our survey and what losses were found in different parts of the region. And you'll find a list of corresponding reports that you can browse at your leisure attached below. Right now we're only going to be concentrating on discussing winter losses. However, we also collected information on the summer losses, and by that we can calculate annual losses. So what you can see is that in our respondents pool, they lost over the summer, and by summer we mean between April 1st and October 1st, they lost on average 11% of their colonies. Over the winter, our response pool lost just over average of 35% of their colonies. And so then combined, the annual loss was just under 40% of colonies. Now you'll notice that those numbers don't necessarily add up, and that's because not all beekeepers gave enough information to provide the data needed to calculate losses in each season. Now, one thing we know is that commercial beekeepers will manage their colonies differently than sideline or hobbyist beekeepers. And so eventually, when we release information about our survey responses, we're hoping that we can break this information up so that we can talk about what commercial beekeepers do versus what backyard beekeepers do. However, we didn't receive enough respondents from commercial beekeepers this last season to divide the data up in this way. What you can see here are the three subdivisions. Backyard beekeepers who manage 50 or fewer colonies, sideline beekeepers who manage between 51 and 500 colonies, and commercial beekeepers who managed more than 500 colonies. You can see that commercial beekeepers, only 44 commercial beekeepers responded versus over 2,000, nearly 2,900 backyard beekeepers. So we're really hoping that we can get more responses from that commercial beekeeping pool. Another way of looking at the data is we all know that beekeeper is very regional, and so it's dependent on different climates. So we can divide the data by beekeepers who kept bees in northern states and beekeepers who kept bees in southern states. And what you can see here is that 60% of the beekeepers responding to our survey came from northern states versus 40% who came from southern states. Another way we can break down the data, and we hope to do this more and more in the future as we get more and more responses, is by subregion. Eventually, we'd love to be able to break this data by state, but for that to happen, we need a lot of responses per state. What you can see here is that in fact losses were different through subregions. And so in the Northeast and Midwest, they had the highest rate of loss, over 40% on average last winter, versus the Southeast and Southwest, which had relatively low levels of loss. You can see the large confidence interval for the Southwest, and that's an account of the fact that relatively few beekeepers in that region responded to our survey. In the West, you can see they sort of fell in the middle at about the national average of 33%. There are a whole bunch of reports that accompany this vlog about the respondents. Not only do we describe the regionality of losses, as we've discussed and highlighted in this, we give some more details there, but we also look at different factors. For instance, we look at losses based on why respondents said they kept bees. We also looked at responses based on how much money they think they made from beekeeping, whether they lost money or not. So you can look at those details at the reports which are listed in the blog below.